I said it very clearly during the session that maintaining global responsibility maintaining global peace is a global responsibility. And more, the African public opinion is looking for African states taking more responsibility in solving the peace and security challenges of the continent. But in doing so, we also welcome the support of our allies, because again, maintaining peace is a global responsibility and all of us should do it. But there is a legitimacy issue. When it's done by a coalition of foreign countries, it's seen as invasion more and more vis-à-vis the public opinion, and particularly when it's done by a former colonial power. So France in Mali is being perceived today as an occupation force. And I really would like perhaps to come back to the issue of not only the legitimacy, but also the long-term perspective when it comes to foreign intervention or military intervention in general. I think they are required, they are necessary to deal with certain very difficult issues that we're facing, challenges that we're facing, that helps to de-escalate the conflict, that respond to human rights abuses, that respond to humanitarian crisis, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, it should be a very short intervention that actually leads to a transition for a longer term, sustainable peacekeeping forces that will allow the country to stabilize, but also to put the institutions that are required for the country to take over. And I think that's really where we're getting it wrong. It's a legitimacy issue, but it's also about looking at the long-term perspective versus the short-term gains. I totally agree with that. I think more and more, and I said it in my conclusion, that we're going to see more and more African-led military intervention within Africa with the support of our allies under the mandate of the Security Council, but also under the mandate of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. And I think that's that flexibility that is required. We're dealing today with a world where the security threats are unprecedented. This is the first time in history that we're dealing with security threats that we do not know how to deal with them. They're volatile, they are unpredictable, and they're very complex. And to deal with that, it requires a lot of flexibility. And of course, the way to go today is this ad hoc arrangement that are allowing a coalition of countries to get together at regional level and deal with the crisis that they have in hand. I think there is a transition currently. The model that is also emerging is not only the model of this ad hoc arrangement at regional level that are more flexible and could respond timely to a disaster. It's also about how do we make sure that the African troops are transitioning from an African-led operation to a longer-term UN stabilization force. It happened in Mali. And of course, in Mali was the African going first, under AFISMA, and then handed over to a bigger coalition with the French. In Central African Republic was also the same. And I think there's also this emerging model which says the Africans will go first because they know the terrain and they know the situation better than anyone else, and then later on hand over to a more longer-term peacekeeping forces that looks at, of course, the multi-dimensional aspect of peacekeeping. Well, the Tana Forum is a forum that deals with peace and security challenges on the continent. We are policy driven. We are advising the African Union through policy debate, but also through political debate on issues of peace and security, how to deal with security challenges on the continent. But the forum has a second hidden objective, which is to actually make sure that this culture of candid dialogue is implemented in whatever we do. Being able to discuss in an open way, in an open manner, being able to deal with the issues in a very candid way, without having the protocol that kicks in within a formal setting of the African Union or the regional economic communities or the UN, for example. And this is a forum where you have a number of head of states that are attending, together with scholars, civil society organizations, decision makers in Africa, regional representatives of regional institutions, who come together and discuss issues in a very candid way. And head of states are accepting to be challenged during that debate. This is very rare, and I think this is really the uniqueness, what makes this forum unique. I think these are the type of challenges that we're dealing in implementing the Africa Peace and Security Architecture, whereby our own set of principles are being challenged sometimes by member states. Issues of sovereignty kicks in and makes it difficult sometimes to implement some of the decisions of the Peace and Security Council. And I think these challenges are here to stay. We still, in building this architecture, have to deal with issues of sovereignty, where member states accept to give a parcel of that sovereignty, and the principle of non-indifference then become the sacrosanct principle in which, within which we operate. And the case of Burundi is one of the less success stories that we had. It had been, we had tremendous success in making sure that the Gambia happens, AMISOM happens, ECOMIB in Guinea-Bissau, CAR at the beginning, the first intervention force, Mali, the first intervention force before the French, etc., etc. And I think these are the type of examples that we can put forward. And more, we are looking for more African-led intervention with the support of our allies, as I said, because maintaining global peace is our responsibility, but the responsibility of all of us as well.